I know you guys are fed up. I'm fed up, and not a political streamer, but I'm fed up with it. How you guys doing? My name is Hero. This is Coding with Strangers, and I'm so tired of ads about Kamala and Trump being good or bad. I don't care. Big T, Donnie, Mama La Harris. I'm tired. They sent me two envelopes worth of ballot initiatives and stuff I have to vote on. Golly. I should be paid for this. But with all great things comes great responsibility. Shout out to Uncle Ben. One of your civic duties is to vote. And you don't get to complain if you don't participate, right? I think in the words of the Philip DeFranco, politics, you might not fuck with politics, but politics will fuck with you. So it's important that you get out there and do your civic duties. With all that being said, we're not a political channel, so let's talk about today's story. We want to discuss cybersecurity as it pertains to voting in our elections. It's not of recent that we were able to start doing electronic voting booths and stations, and eventually the progression, I think, for voting will evolve into us being able to vote online, for us to be able to vote visually or some type of way where maybe you have to give up your metric identity and stuff like that, but it's coming. And it's important that it happens because that shows the natural progression of technology. But why is it so important that we are able to maintain integrity of our elections and be able to prove that in the past we had secure elections in order to gain more freedoms, or dare I say more access to how we can vote? Because if everyone can vote accordingly, the more people that vote, the better off we all are. So with this information in tow, I'm going to start off by saying, please don't think it's sweet out here and think that you can tamper with our elections on a voting booth level. You can write all the fake news you want online and stuff like that and leave that to disseminate amongst other people. But when it comes down to how our elections are ran, how the information is stored, how it is tabulated and all of those things, do not think for 1 second that you're about to go up in there and cause damage and havoc. It's ill-advised, it's wrong, and you will suffer steep consequences, as we learned about at the end of this video. But for the meantime and in between time, Trump supporters, of course, are boosting a clip of voting machines being hacked. It's not what it seems. Of course it's not. The machine hasn't been in use for decades, and the hackers who exposed the flaw in it say he has confidence that this year's election will be run properly. A short video clip of a Finnish ethical hacker using a USB stick to hack an election voting machine is being hyped by right-wing figures as proof that the U.S. presidential election could be stolen. But the machine in question has been discontinued and has not been used in the U.S. elections for decades. That would normally be the end of the story. If most people's reading comprehension was higher than that of a fruit fly, we'd be done here today. But unfortunately for you, more likely for me, because I'm going to spend an additional hour and 20 minutes editing this. So make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Show me some mercy. I'm doing this for you, the people, okay? The video clip has been shared by key figures who have pushed former President Donald Trump's lie that the 2020 election was stolen. It was taken from an episode of the PBD podcast, first broadcast on YouTube last week. The show is hosted by Patrick Bet-Davids, a conservative commentator known for sharing conspiracy theories to his millions of followers. Imagine having millions of followers and doing something constructive. The episode was released with the tagline, "Never trust, always verify." Cool. And featured Harry Harutsi, Finnish ethical hacker who has spent years trying to highlight the vulnerabilities in voting machines. My confidence in the U.S. election is actually high, said Hastra during the podcast. Right now, we have to improve the system, but we already know how to get elections done right. Okay, so let's just stop right here. My confidence in the U.S. election is actually high. So we need to get them improved. Okay, cool. But they disclose their political leanings conservative to the right, which is, perfectly fine. You can be on whatever side of the aisle you want. But usually when you talk about problems, I'm more inclined to listening to people who have problems that they can solve. I want resolutions. Stop talking to me about your problems. Come to me if you're ready to have them solved. Don't come to me complaining, okay? It says, we already know how to get elections done right with hand-marked paper ballots. Since my colleague and I started to expose the problems, more and more of the United States have transitioned to having hand-marked paper ballots. Hand-marked paper ballots have been a thing for decades. You have options to do it, but it's kind of funny that they're now saying hand-marked paper ballots, but we can clearly point back to the time where, Donald Trump was telling his supporters not to vote by mail because that was the trap. Paper mail-in ballots was the trap. That's what he would preach. That's what he would say. That's what he would do. So now that that's no longer an issue, now he lost the election by millions of votes that probably would have come in through mail. Maybe now he realized the error of his ways. So it's counterproductive messaging here. A little bit of counterproductive messaging here. Benzi's post caught attention of some big names in the world of voting machines conspiracies. Overstock CEO Patrick Byron, whose name was in the defamation lawsuit by Dominion Voting on an account of lies he spreaded about the machines following the 2020 election, amplified Benzi's post. Trump former national security advisor and elections conspiracist Michael Flynn reposted Benzi's post about the hack. Our election system is vulnerable to nefarious actors, Flynn wrote. We must get rid of the machines. Man, do you remember how crazy these people were and still are? Total BS. That we continue using them. Right-wing influencer Philip Buckingham. I'm so happy I don't know who he is. Now online as Cat Turd. Oh, it's Cat Turd. That's his name? Philip Buckingham? Interesting. Also reposted Benzi's post along with the pithy statement of his million followers. Imagine that. The clip of the successful hacking minus key context also spread across fringe news sites. The platform right-wing commentator Vigilante Fox, who runs Vigilante News, flagged the podcast clip to their 1.3 million followers on X as an important story that the media hides from you today. On the Truth Social news was distributed via a link across fringe sites such as Slay News and shared with Freedom Force Babylon and a QAnon account. I haven't listened to the whole interview yet, to be fair. At least you're being honest that you're uninformed. One poster on Truth Social wrote while sharing the short clip and claiming that all voting machines are compromised. It's important to note, at the same time, officials of the U.S. government and agencies charged with running and defending the election from the U.S. 2020 election and labeled it as the most secure in American history. Every computer in the world can be hacked. This is a fact. This is just something we know. If you have access and no mitigation, Hartsey said, when we've hacked machines, it's not for the purpose that we can improve. And if you cannot improve the system, then you have to improve everything around the system. Have a mitigation strategy, how you defend the system. And now, this is something that makes sense, but you would have to first be able to prove that there's large-scale issues. Our systems have been tested not only by nefarious Americans, but overseas. Russia has been messing in our elections since God knows when. Venezuela, and the word, and like, there's huge things there's a huge group of people that you could point to. As much as America messes with other people's elections, people are always messing with our elections. But the number one thing that I guess I'm trying to at least articulate here is that contingency plans are already put in place to make sure, contingency plans that these people aren't even remotely aware of. But the Finnish hacker pushed back, dismissing the suggestion, pointing out that without proper regulation in place to ensure voting machines meet basic security standards, the idea that the elections were vulnerable to cybersecurity was enough to damage democracy. And that's sort of like a fallacy in my mind. Yeah, okay, and if I say 3 eggs in my carton were messed up or had bird flu, does that mean every single all the eggs in the rest of the flock need to be thrown out? No. There needs to be proper investigation. It can't be hearsay. And just because you don't have a vote of confidence doesn't mean that the regulatory safe check doesn't happen. It also doesn't mean that things do not slip through the cracks. And once we find those edge cases, how we handle them and help further mitigate them is really the diabolical plan we should be coming up with. But notice this isn't their talking point. Their talking point here is very much so surrounded around making people afraid. And I have to stress this very much so before we go into the next topic. If you ever feel yourself reading something and you're getting nervous, palms sweaty, mom spaghetti, take a deep breath. Maybe log off. Go touch some grass. Take it from me. I'm a person who indulges in the internet. I love it here. But sometimes you get too much of a good thing, and too much of anything will hurt you, right? Just ask yourself, why is this person trying to tell me this? Furthermore, second step, why does this person have a vested interest in me having a certain reaction to this? And once you start asking yourself those questions before reacting to everything, you tend to mellow the hell out. It really does help out. The worry here is to deny the results and make a false allegation, Hertz said. This is very dangerous because it is feeding and the distrust of the public, and in democracy, and distrust is damaging. The participation and democracy is all about participation. Distrust is causing apathy. Apathy is something which is detrimental for functioning democracies. And he's right. Weird cases and weird stories like this do hurt our democracy. But if we had to say, like, is there a group of people that, like, what has there ever been a group of people who have ever tried to take democracy in its whole sorts using technology? Has there ever been a group of people that have, probably used technology to their advantage or their proximity to power in order to, actually alter our democracy? Tina Peters, sentenced to 9 years in prison. Tina Peters was the election council board member who gave My Pillow CEO access to Dominion's voting machines using her PIN card. Registered Republican, county representative for 4 years. She was just sentenced to 9 years, October 3rd, 2024, today. So we do know that people will use their proximity to power in order to manipulate. But Hero, come on. Be for real. That was one story. She's clearly a crazy lady. Look at her. She has the Karen haircut. No one, even white people know not to trust people with Karen haircuts. She's got it. She's smiling in her mugshot. She's going to jail for 9 years. She's clearly a psychopath. You're right. The deep irony in the GOP's war against voter fraud. In 2020, over 50 counties made fraudulent accusations about there being voter fraud, But there was only accounts of 14 total in the 2020 election, as is stated from the date of April 5th, 2024, and all 14 resided in Republican counties with Republican voters. But those are just the people who went to the store. Republican clerk, pro-Trump lawyer charged in Michigan voting system breach. So there is a pattern here. That there's a lot of dumbass people in the world. You feel me? You feel me? And you can save yourself a lot of trouble by not being one of these dumbass peoples, right? By not being one of these dumb people. You can save yourself a lot of trouble by not being one of these dumb people. And while it's tempting to believe everything you see on the internet, just a little bit, dig just a tad bit deeper, and maybe you could save yourself from a 9-year prison sentence by tampering with people's elections. One thing we know for sure is that if we can't verify our elections, heads will roll. So you best believe if you come talking about this election was stolen, that's you're gonna need some proof to substantiate such claims. And I want people to understand that our elections are as fair as they're going to be. The true tragedy of our elections is that we run a two-party system, and that's what we need to be worried about. That's what we need to be fighting against, because once again, we're not a political channel, but taxation without representation is the greatest form of theft. And from the looks of it, as long as I've been voting, they've been stealing my vote for a long ass time. But that's neither here or there. That's just my perspective. Let me know what you think. Like, share, subscribe. Appreciate y'all. Take care of yourselves. Make sure you go register to vote.